Please leave a comment where in the world you are listening from. A little over a year ago, my girlfriend, Charlotte, died in a car crash. A drunk driver hit her head-on while she was driving home after dropping off some friends from a college party. She wasn't drunk, she was the designated driver. Her small Toyota Camry didn't stand a chance against the huge 18-wheeler that was on the wrong side of the highway. By the time the police got there, her car was on fire, and she was burned so badly that they couldn't even recognize her. The guy who hit her had a BAC of .13. He's in prison for life, but that doesn't change anything. Charlotte is gone, and I'll never see her again. The only thing that survived the crash, besides the guy who killed her, was the bracelet I gave her for our 4-year anniversary. It was half of a rose gold heart with her initials on it, and mine was the other half. Her family buried it with her, so she'd always have a piece of me with her. A year later, I finished college, got a job, and moved into my first place. But I was still stuck, still trying to make sense of what happened. It felt so unfair. Charlotte wasn't even a big drinker, and she was always super careful when driving. And yet a drunk driver was what took her life. It made no sense. But at some point, I realized that no matter how much I thought about it, I'd never get the answers I wanted. Thinking about it over and over wasn't going to bring her back. Then one night, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. I wanted someone. I hadn't dated or even thought about sex since Charlotte died. It just didn't feel right. But now, for the first time, I felt like maybe I was ready. But with that feeling came guilt. Guilt that I was thinking about moving on. Guilt that I wanted romance again. That I was even considering meeting someone new. At first I wanted to push those thoughts away, but then I asked myself, was I just hiding behind my grief? Was I using Charlotte's death as an excuse to avoid the risk of falling in love again? I decided to take it slow. No serious relationships, just something casual. I'd never used a dating app before, but I figured it might be the easiest way to start. That same night, while I was looking into dating apps, I got a random email about one called Curio. It said, "Welcome to Curio. Are you curious to meet that special someone? Click the link below to download our free dating app." I'd never heard of it before, but I knew about Tinder and Bumble, so I thought, why not? I clicked the link, which took me to the App Store. The icon was a black square with a strange red C in the center. I downloaded it, then started setting up my profile, name, age, basic info. Then I had to pick some pictures. I spent about 10 minutes scrolling through my camera roll, trying to find the best ones. That's when I came across old photos of Charlotte and me, pictures I'd completely forgotten about. There was one of us on spring break in Cancun, wearing straw hats and leis. Another of us kissing in front of the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. And one of us in matching USA t-shirts during a Beer Olympics game. The Cancun picture hit me the hardest. That night we got ridiculously drunk and started calling ourselves the Tequila Twins. After that, every time we drank together, we'd joke, "The Tequila Twins are back at it again." I stared at those pictures for a long time. It felt like a different life, like someone else's memories. But they were mine. And no matter what happened next, no matter who I met, I knew I'd always carry those moments with me. I didn't want to get emotional, so I distracted myself by taking a few selfies for my profile. After that, I started swiping through the app. Most of the girls were kinda average, nothing special. I kept swiping left until I got bored and decided to try again tomorrow. It was late, and I had work in the morning. The next day I got a notification from Curio. "Congratulations, you have a new match." That was weird because I didn't even remember swiping right on anyone. But I was super tired last night, so maybe I did it by accident. Curious, I clicked on the notification. When I saw the profile, my stomach dropped. The girl looked exactly like Charlotte. Same name, same age, same pictures. My face burned with anger. Who the hell makes a fake profile of someone who's dead? I was about to message them, but they beat me to it. "Hey!" I typed back fast. "Whoever you are, delete this profile now. This isn't funny. What kind of sick freak does this?" "Cam, it's me. Char." My hands started shaking. My heart pounded. Sweat dripped down my forehead. "Stop this. Right now." But I missed my tequila twin. My breath got caught in my throat. My ears were ringing. "Who are you?" "Cam, it's me. Char. Please talk to me, babe." I slammed the app shut. My brain felt like it was short-circuiting. Before I knew it, I was running late for work. I threw on clothes and rushed out, trying to convince myself this was just some awful joke. I was 10 minutes late, and my manager, Big Ted, was pissed. "This is the second time this month, Cameron. Don't let it happen again," he snapped. Yes, sir. I mumbled, heading to my desk. Rob, my coworker, leaned over. Don't take it personally, man. Ted's just extra mad cause of the divorce. I scoffed. Isn't this like his third wife? Fourth, Rob corrected. First one cheated, second got deported, third OD'd, and this one was just sick of his crap. God, I hate corporate jobs. I sighed while opening my laptop. Hey, you ever heard of this dating app called Curio? Now I'm more of a Tinder guy, but now I'm Curio. Get it? Curious? Rob grinned. I chuckled half-heartedly while checking my work email. But then I saw something that made my blood go cold. A new message. From Curio. How did this app even get my work email? I hesitated before clicking. It was a picture. Of my back porch. There was a note. The new place looks great without me. We were supposed to move in together. Left a little gift at your door since you don't want to talk to me anymore. My heart started hammering. My hands felt numb. I tripped over my chair, struggling to breathe. Rob rushed over. Dude, are you okay? I gotta go. I grabbed my jacket and bolted out of the office. The drive home felt like it took forever. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my heart was racing, and all I wanted was to be anywhere but here. I grabbed an old baseball bat from my trunk and slowly walked up to my front porch. The door was still locked, which was a relief. Still, I checked every room in my house to make sure no one was there. Everything looked just like I left it. Nothing was missing. I let out a deep breath and laughed a little. Was I really letting some internet troll freak me out this much? My location was on in the app. They could have easily found my address on Google Maps, taken a screenshot of my porch, and sent it to mess with me. That had to be it. Feeling a little stupid, I locked up and left for work. But as I stepped onto the back porch, I heard a light crunch under my foot. I lifted my shoe and saw something shiny stuck to it. I picked it up and my heart dropped. It was a rose gold bracelet with half of a heart pendant. The initials CC were carved into it. I looked down at my wrist. My bracelet. The other half of the pendant was still there. I never took it off, not since the funeral. I fit the two pieces together. A perfect heart. I dropped the bracelet back on the doormat and rushed to my car, tears burning my eyes. My hands were shaking as I yanked out my phone and furiously typed. Tell me who the hell this is. Right now. The reply came instantly. Cam, why are you mad at me? Sad face. I miss you so much. Is this how you treat your girlfriend? This isn't funny. I'm reporting you. I reported the account for a fake identity, unmatched the user, and deleted the app from my phone. Then I just sat there in my car crying. I pulled myself together and went back to work. Luckily, Big Ted was gone for the rest of the day, so I didn't get in trouble for leaving earlier. By the time I got home, I was exhausted. I crashed on the couch and passed out for a few hours. I woke up to my phone ringing. It was Rob. I yawned and picked up. Hey man, what's up? Yo Cam, hope I'm not bothering you. Just wanted to ask about that dating app you told me about. I stretched and rubbed my eyes. Curio. Curio. There was a short pause. I heard Rob typing. Huh, that's weird. What? I can't find it. You sure that's how you spell it? Yeah, it's Curio. Well, it's not showing up. Maybe my phone's just old. No worries. See you tomorrow. After we hung up, curiosity got the best of me. I searched for Curio on Google. Nothing. No website, no reviews, no mention of it anywhere. That didn't make sense. I had downloaded it. I had emails from them. Maybe deleting the app was the best thing I could have done. I went to bed thinking I was done with it. I was wrong. The next morning, I woke up to a notification. Curio was back on my phone, and I had a new match. I tapped the alert and froze when I saw who it was. Charlotte. Again. How? I whispered. A video message popped up. My stomach twisted as I opened IT. That IT was dark and grainy, but I could tell what I was looking at. My bedroom. Someone was filming me. The camera moved closer until the phone's light shined on my face as I slept. Under the video was a message. You're so handsome when you sleep, winky face. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a mistake. I had to go to the police. I sped to the station before work, stormed up to the front desk, and slammed my phone down in front of two officers. Someone is stalking me. They're pretending to be my dead girlfriend on a dating app. The officers exchanged confused looks. Slow down, son, one said. What's your name? What app are we talking about? Cameron Hill. The app is called Curio. Curio. My girlfriend, Charlotte Campbell, died last year, and someone is pretending to be her. They know where I live. They've sent pictures of my house, videos of me sleeping. I unlocked my phone and opened the app to show them. They squinted at the screen. Then one of them chuckled. "You ever try Tinder, kid?" I didn't laugh. The grin slid off his face. This was real. And I was on my own. "Yeah, I don't know what's up with this app, but it keeps freezing and crashing before I can even see anything," said the other officer, a slightly better-looking version of his partner. "You probably don't have much to worry about, though. These cyberbullying cases usually turn out to be a bunch of punks messing around." I narrowed my eyes. "Cyberbullying? Sir, with all due respect, I believe I'm being stalked. Hunted." The officer sighed. "Look, kid, if you get any more threats, you know where to find us." I glared at them both, then snatched my phone and stormed out. A complete waste of time. By the time I got to work, I was 5 minutes late. Big Ted noticed. "You are so fucking unqualified for this job. It's not even funny," he snapped. "If it weren't for your rich daddy buying your way into life, you'd be on the streets. You bring nothing to this company. Stop showing up late." I clenched my jaw, forcing a calm response. "Yes, sir. Won't happen again." The day dragged on, but at least it ended. I got home, collapsed onto the couch, and immediately passed out, only to wake up a few hours later to a notification from Curio. "It's been 3 days, Cam. I miss you so much, uneasy face. Can we please meet up tonight?" My fingers flew over the screen. "I don't know who you are, but Charlotte Campbell, the person you're pretending to be, is dead. Gone. Buried at St. Agatha's Cemetery, miles away. Leave me alone." I exhaled sharply and rubbed my temples. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed again. The message was different this time. Colder. "You have until 9 p.m. tonight to find me, or I'll drag you to hell with me." A chill ran down my spine. My pulse thundered. I had to get answers. I searched Google for Curio again. Nothing. I checked my email. The sender was anonymous, unreachable. I even tried replying, but the message bounced back as invalid. Then I noticed something. At the bottom of the original email, the one advertising Curio was fine print. "If your curiosity is fulfilled, please pass this message along to another friend who lost a lover. We're here to piece love back together." I stared at it, trying to make sense of it. By the end of the night, though, I had a feeling I wouldn't be hearing from Charlotte again. I woke up the next morning. Alive. Not in hell. I checked my phone. No notifications. No messages from Curio. No emails. The app itself had been completely erased. It was as if it had never existed. At work, things were different. Big Ted was in a strangely good mood. He even apologized. "I shouldn't have said those things, Cam. We have to hold on tight to the people who are there for us. Never take them for granted." Then, the next day, he was gone. No formal goodbye. No resignation. Big Ted disappeared. It's been months, and no one has seen him since. I've moved to a different town, found a different job. I'm happier now. I even met someone new, without the help of dating apps. But if you ever get an email about an app called Curio, do not download it. Do what the fine print says. Pass it along. Definitely too late, but this was very recent, and I feel like sharing it somewhere, as I don't like telling people around me that I use Tinder. So I matched with this guy, your average surfer boy. Seemed like a kind person, and everything we shared socials quite fast, and I noticed he had a Jesus reference going on top of his longish hair, and I thought that was kind of cute. He kept asking to meet, and I remind you this was already during the COVID-19 social distancing thing going on. So I politely declined, and he didn't seem to get it, and every time I declined, he would make a more aggressive remark, kind of hinting at what was to come. He kept saying, "Oh, it's a joke, it's fake news, it's bullshit, blah blah blah," and I shrugged it off first. On his Instagram story, I saw he had posted something about this far-right conspiracy theory and telling people to wake up. He bragged about how he was deliberately ignoring the safety guidelines in every way possible. I was getting uncomfortable. Interestingly, the whole far-right conspiracy thing didn't bother me that much. I've grown up in a right-wing environment and have become desensitized to all that stuff and can generally accept other people's opinions as long as they don't actively treat other people like crap. But this whole narrative he had going on that he didn't believe in a confirmed freaking epidemic because of some silly conspiracy theory and chose to ignore safety procedures, and with that putting other people at risk, freaked me out. So he asked me, again, to come and meet him on a Friday night. He downright invited me to his home with some friends for a drinking game night. I was definitely not having that, so I told him I was not leaving the house at the moment. He said, "Fair enough." The day after, he seemed completely oblivious about what I had explained to him the night before, and asked again like literally every day, "Do you want to do something?" And I just thought to myself, he really isn't seeing that this is serious, so I asked him about it. And he started ranting about how much bullshit this thing was, so I told him my brother had contracted it, and he was trying to tell me it's fake. Okay, fair enough. So I tried asking for proof, albeit I was absolutely not going to believe a word he was saying, as I had already lost all respect I had left for him. So he went on a xenophobic, anti-Semitic rage. I sat there, just laughing, even though it was just sad. It's funny to see these people taking themselves so seriously, and they are so far up their own asses with their delusions. It's like talking to a brick wall, so I let him rant for a few moments. Let the kid pour it out before he writes a manifesto and plans a terror attack right. But when he started calling me a snowflake, assuming that I was just believing everything the media was feeding me, that's when I'd had enough. I'm studying philosophy and psychology, so this was a very interesting encounter for me to observe, though not very pleasant. I asked him a row of very valid questions, like in what way he deemed himself of being better believing in these stupid conspiracy theories than people buying everything the mass media feeds them, and then he started getting really defensive. I hit his weak toxic masculine spot, and that's when he went on a sexist rampage, telling me I deserved to get raped. I have no clue where that came from. That was the final straw for me, though. I do not tolerate men condoning rape, so I told him that it was an interesting encounter, that I was sorry for him, he was too far gone, that I no longer wished to be talking to a brick wall, and that I hoped for him to learn how to think for himself. That because he told everyone to open their eyes and question things and think. Well, truth be told, most people never learn how to properly think. It's an odd thought, but sadly true. I told him when he tried to prove one of his silly theories with another silly theory, congrats, he could read some stupid theory, check if it fits into his agenda, and then interpret it accordingly. I call it the bias check. That is the first step of taking up information. Now all he needed was to learn to actually think for himself, and that is something you don't learn if you aren't challenged philosophically in one way or another. Anyway, I blocked him. Thank God I didn't meet up with him. I can say COVID may have saved my life. I live in a big city and matched with a girl who lived way out in the suburbs. She wanted to meet downtown in the city and asked me to choose a place. She had fairly strict dietary requirements, but I found a good place that has 2 or 3 locations in the city. It wasn't anything like Olive Garden, but since this is about nightmares, let's say it was an Olive Garden. I sent her a text something like, "Let's meet at the Olive Garden on Main Street near City Hall." She agrees. The night of the date arrives. She, however, does not. She calls and says she's looking for parking. I'd had no idea she'd be driving into the city. No one I interact with in the city owns a car, and there's good train service from her suburb, but whatever. I look up parking garages for her, but she keeps saying she can't find them. I finally ask her to read me a street sign. Turns out she's halfway across the city. I'm confused, and tell her I'm downtown like we'd planned. She gets angry and says I sent her a link to the restaurant, so that's where she went. I was pretty confused, since I had never sent a link. Then I figured it out. Her phone had done that thing where it underlines the name of a business and turns it into a link. But it had chosen some other random Olive Garden nowhere near Main Street or City Hall, and she had mindlessly assumed it was the only Olive Garden in the entire huge city, even though it was nowhere near where I had described. Red flag number 1. Getting angry at me about it and blaming me, red flag number 2. But I am too nice for my own good, so I offered to go meet her at the other Olive Garden. She says no, she'll park and get a taxi. She finds it extremely difficult to find the restaurant even with the exact address in Google Maps. She apparently cannot communicate well enough with the taxi driver to get him to understand the address. Red flags numbers 3 and 4. She finally arrives, and I've ordered her food that fits all her dietary restrictions. She likes her dinner, and we have cordial but boring conversation. She gets a hankering for tea, so I take her to a really nice tea place. I suggest a scenic walk back to her car. She agrees. The walk is scenic, but the conversation is boring, stilted, and hard to maintain. Red flag number 5. I see her to her car, and she goes cold and doesn't really look at me or say goodbye when she leaves. I get the strong impression she was just faking enjoying my company during the walk and is now relieved the date is over. Fair enough. By this point I felt the same way, although I was being more polite about it. Red flag number 6, but who cares at this point? Neither one of us appears interested in a second date whatsoever, so no big deal. I sigh with relief, text her good night, and move on with my life. 2 days later, she texts me saying it was very rude of me not to reach out again. I tell her I got the impression she didn't want to hear from me. She texts, "You're wrong." Okay. She asks if I'd like a second date, and I politely explain that it was nice meeting her, but I don't think we really had much of a connection. She gets pissed. Over the next few hours, with few replies from me, she berates me for sending her to the wrong restaurant, and demands that I pay for A, her taxi, B, her gas, C, her tolls, and D, her parking. She sends me a Venmo account. I'm too nice for my own good, so I say that I will pay for the taxi, since I did choose the place, even though I did specify where it was, and she ignored that information. I Venmo her the taxi money, but say, "Sorry, I didn't even know you'd be driving to our date, so I'm not going to pay for your gas, tolls, or parking." She repeatedly insults me over this, and says I forced her to incur these costs. In fact, I had said several times that we didn't have to meet downtown if somewhere else was more convenient, and she'd always said it was fine. She ends by saying she's going to call my employer and tell them how I treat people. So yeah, stupidity, entitlement, zero chemistry, and blackmail. Not a great date. I cannot drive because I have terrible peripheral vision, and sometimes it can make bad dates awkward because I ask them to take me home. This one took the cake. I swear, all of this really happened. We were supposed to get dinner and a movie. He picked me up, seemed nervous, and wouldn't stop quickly talking when we were on the way. I just figured it was first date nerves. We went by the dinner place, about to get out of the car, when he says he actually thinks the movie is going to start before we finish dinner. They were a little busy, but I thought it was a little strange. We skipped dinner. We get to the movie theater, stood in line for him to get a ticket. I had already gotten mine online, so I didn't bring anything inside with me but my phone to show my QR scan. We get up to pay and he does the very obvious. "Oh, and oh, I forgot my wallet at home." I'm so embarrassed, except he says it in a manner that suggests he was waiting for me to offer to pay. I tell him I didn't bring my card inside. He apologizes to the teller and calls me his forgetful girlfriend. Super awkward. We leave the theater. He immediately suggests that instead of going back inside to pay, that we go by his place real quick to grab his wallet. Cool. First redemption. I agree with him. We have enough time to make it back for the film. 10 minutes pass, and we pull up to his place. He asks me if I want to come inside. I say sure. We get inside. I realize he still lives with his parents. We are both almost 30. He introduces me to them. Super awkward. He immediately suggests that, since we're having such a nice time, that we just stay there and watch a movie. At this point, I'm no longer interested in screaming inside. I text a friend about the possibility of getting picked up, actively awaiting a reply. His parents offer me spaghetti, awkward, and I politely decline, but he doesn't. Eager to get the fuck out of that kitchen, I follow him to his room where he is picking out a movie. I sit down on the couch in his room and incessantly check my phone for SOS replies. None yet. He gets sidetracked, I'm barely listening, and starts playing some of his original music that is literally just a pre-recorded instrumental of Fall Out Boy and P.E.T.D. Songs with his shitty alternate lyrics badly recorded over it. I'm so cringe. I almost feel bad for the guy until he apologizes for all the uppers he's on and how he's speeding and probably acting weird. I finally get a reply. 25 minutes, and I'm fucking out of there. I let him know I may have to leave soon, so he turns on YouTube and sits down next to me on the couch. He slowly creeps closer, puts his arm around my shoulder, and uses the back of his hand to brush against my side boob. I stand up. "What are you doing? You said you might have to leave soon. I thought maybe we could fool around before I took you home." "Sorry, but no. You're a nice guy and all, but I'm not interested. I'm waiting on a friend to come pick me up right now. I don't think we'll be going out again." He immediately becomes a blubbering mess and apologizes profusely, claims there must be something wrong with him. He's desperately lonely. It's been years. He doesn't know how to talk to people. He's gonna kill himself if he can't get attention. All of the horrible excuses you don't care to listen to. I don't even reply. I just gather my purse and make my way towards the door. "You could have at least let me give you a ride home. It's not like I'm going to hurt you." Surprised face, nope. I'm out. I start leaving his house, say not shit to his parents as I leave the way I came, and wait by the driveway for my friend. I'm out there maybe 5 minutes before he comes outside crying, telling me I've embarrassed him, and I should feel terrible for embarrassing his family, who made me a perfectly nice meal. I don't answer. He keeps yelling, eventually goes back inside. Another couple minutes pass. Comes back outside, apologizes profusely. I tell him to leave me alone. Yes, yes. 4. Hey, good night kiss. I tell him to fuck off. My roommate/friend picks me up. We have a good laugh. We get a little closer from it. About 5 days pass. I think it's all over. I was wrong. For context, while I was talking to this person on Tinder before we met for a date, I talked a lot about food because I'm a professional chef. I mentioned once in a chat weeks ago that I needed to stop responding for the day because I have to go out to get groceries. That usually takes me a while because I go to 3 to 5 stores to get the best produce, prices, and specialty ingredients. I'm at home. It's summer. I'm dicking around on Reddit and listening to Taylor Swift. I hear the back door to the house open. I presume it's my roommate who went shopping a few hours ago. I hear the rustle of bags in my kitchen and someone putting away things in the pantry and the fridge. After about 10 minutes I go in to refill a beverage and see it's the same fucking guy from that terrible date. I hit the SOS alert button on my phone, which sends my location, a distress message, an image on both front and back cameras, and a 1-minute audio recording to a list of people I chose. I asked him what the fuck he was doing at my house, and why he thought he could just come in unannounced. You said you needed groceries. I thought it would be nice to bring you some. I invited a couple friends over. I thought we could have a double date and cook them a nice meal. Are you fucking kidding me? I see red. I start screaming and shoving him to get out of my house. At first he seems genuinely confused, then angry. I get him out of the house. Lock the doors. Call my roommate. He's sitting in his car in the driveway, punching himself in the face. I start yelling from the window that I've called the cops. I haven't, so that he'd leave. He does, after about 20 minutes. I installed cameras in my house. That guy ended up getting arrested a couple weeks later for assault, unsure if it was sexual or not. My roommate and I bonded through this experience, began dating about 6 months after that, and have been together 4 years now. I kept the groceries. Everyone feels lonely sometimes. For me, last night struck a little harder than usual. I'm not sure why it did, but it led to me downloading Tinder. When irrational thoughts get to you, you start to think of irrational solutions to your problem. I figured I would get on Tinder and swipe the night away, as it seemed like the easiest fix for my problem. I have always believed that dating apps aren't made to pair you with a potential lover, but rather to make you feel insecure, so you spend more time on the app. Because of this, I was surprised to find a girl called Jessica had liked me back within 10 minutes of me using the app. I felt like she was fake at first, but I'd rather find out than contemplate about the possibility, so I texted her. She responded within a few minutes, and we started talking. What felt like minutes of talking had turned into hours. When I looked at the time, I was surprised to see that it was 1 a.m., so I told her that I had to sleep because I had to wake up early for work in the morning, but that I'd love to text with her again. She replied, "Oh yeah, no problem. If you give me your phone number, we can get off this app," smiley face. Without hesitation, I gave her my phone number and went to sleep. I woke up and started the day as I usually do. I ate breakfast, took a shower, brushed my teeth, and got on my way to work. I have worked for a newspaper for over 5 years, where I get to write about all types of things. Today I had to write about a man who went missing not too far from where I live. He was 2 years younger than me and lived alone. It's been 2 weeks since his disappearance, and the local authorities decided to use the newspaper in hopes someone would have more information. As I was finishing up the story about the missing person, I got a text message from the girl. She asked me how work was, and if I had anything to do that evening. I caught myself smiling at the text message and ridiculed myself for already being head over heels for this girl, despite not having met her in person. I always tend to get attached to people too quickly, which is usually why my relationships don't go as I would like them to. Because of this, I cursed my mind for feeling this way. I waited a few minutes before answering her text, because I felt like it would make me seem more mysterious and busier than I actually am. I'm not sure why, but I figured it would be better than replying within 5 seconds. "Yeah, I'm free. Getting off from work soon. What do you have in mind?" I sent the message and went back to finish the news article. Once I had finished it, I sent it to my boss for confirmation and left work for the day. When I looked at my phone, she replied to my message. "How about you come over to my place in an hour? We can chat and have some fun." Without hesitation, I quickly opened the chat and replied, completely disregarding my previous strategy. That sounds great. I'll be on my way soon. A few minutes after that she sent me her address, which was not far from where I lived. It's about a 15-minute walk. As I made my way to her house, I was imagining all the possible situations that might occur, any conversations we might have, and what the best responses would be. I arrived at her house 10 minutes earlier than she said, but being early is usually considered a good thing. I knocked on the door of her house and waited for a little bit, but got no response. I grabbed my phone and told her I was at her house. While waiting for a response, I decided to look around the house to see if maybe I could see her through one of the windows. I made my way to the back of her house and quickly found myself standing in the garden. Standing in the garden, I immediately noticed something odd. It seemed like she had done some digging a few days ago. I figured she had tiles in her garden, which she decided to remove. Before I had the chance to think about it any longer, I heard her voice yell at me from a window above me. "Oh hey, you're already here. Let me open the door." I waved at her awkwardly and was startled by her sudden appearance. I quickly regained my composure and made my way back to the front door, where I was met with her beautiful smile and a gesture for me to come in. "You want something to drink?" she asked. Some water would be great, thanks," I replied awkwardly. I forgot how shy I can get around people when it's not over text. It's a whole different experience for me. I could tell she picked up on it, and she was amazing when it came to talking to people, because she managed to make me feel at ease quickly. She handed me my drink, and we started talking like we had the night before, the only difference being that this was face to face. After talking for a bit, I asked her if I could use the bathroom. "There's one right down the hall," she said, pointing to the general direction. I stood up and made my way to where she was pointing. Not me directly, but a flatmate I used to live with. Let's call her Abby. This is kind of two stories in one, so stay with me. Sitting comfortable? Then I shall begin. Abby, who since I had shared a flat with had not had much luck in the love department. Some her own fault, some not. However, she was a lovely girl and a great sense of humor and sweet as anything. She was single, as was I, and we decided one night to go to a speed date event where she ended up matching with this guy. Let's call Steve. Steve was actually really nice, and he used to come over for dinner, play Xbox, and him and Abby seemed pretty good together. He worked as a sales rep, and his work decided they needed to send him abroad. This was for 2 weeks, and at which time it was Abby's birthday party. They had been seeing each other for about 2 months at this point. Steve was gutted he would miss it, but said he would ring, etc., and that morning he did, and all was good. Abby had a gathering at our local pub/club, which was great. Loads of her friends turned up, and strangely one of her ex-boyfriends was working behind the bar. I knew him from before I moved in with her, and he was one of those cool sly cats that would and could talk his way in and out of any situation. Several hours go by and Abby has had a great time, clearly very merry, and I too am feeling the drink by this time. So I head home with Abby, which is only a few minutes walk. We get in and say night and wish her a happy birthday, and up I go to bed. Next day I come downstairs and start making coffee, and I hear the front door open and shut. I go out to look and I don't see anyone there. Abby appears in the lounge, and I assume she went out the front for some reason, and go to roll a cigarette and go outside myself. I think nothing of it, and the rest of the 2 weeks go by, and during this Abby is clearly missing Steve. Cut to Saturday, Steve is back and they go out to dinner. He has bought her roses for her birthday, yada yada yada, and clearly he has missed her a lot. I hear them come home after dinner and disappear off to her room. I venture off to my own room and start watching a movie and on the PC. About half an hour passes, and suddenly I hear shouting downstairs. I go out and they are arguing. He's saying he is so upset with her and that he cannot believe she would do this to him. He leaves and she's on the stairs crying. I go down and ask her what's wrong and what's happened. Turns out they had come home and gone to bed, and while Steve was fingering her he felt something and pulled out a used condom which had been inside her for 11 days. Let that sink in for a few seconds. 11 days. No surprises who the owner was either, the ex from her birthday party. Smooth Sly Jeff and his sly shaft. She admitted she remembers him turning up at the door. She hadn't gone straight to bed, so she was still up, and she let him in as he had brought drinks with him. They stayed up chatting, and he had given her a present. She does remember saying he can stay over on the couch as it was late, but somehow they ended upstairs. Then she remembers him kissing her, which led them to having sex, consensual. She felt terrible, but as it was a big mistake and she thought she could hide it. Clearly not. We never saw Steve again, sadly. Nice guy, and Abby regrets it completely. Only human, I guess. Now the second part is a few months later. She decided Match.com would be her ticket to a new man. She was soon flooded with the matches and decided to go on a date with this guy who we will call Romeo. Before she went, I was giving her advice, the usual be yourself stuff, and she went and had a great time by all accounts of the loud sex that was happening in the house later that night. The next morning she came down to the kitchen, and I asked if all was good, and she said she was happy, and she had found the one. I felt she was a little off for thinking this, first date, but she had had the bad breakup before this, so I thought she was just catching feelings early and getting caught up in the moment. She goes off for a shower, and I'm still making breakfast. Cue Romeo walking in, and without missing a beat, he says he's leaving now, and to tell her it was fun. I asked why he was going now, and that Abby would only be a few minutes. His reply was, "My wife will be home shortly. Need to get home before she does." At this point I bit my tongue and he left. Abby came down after getting dressed and asked where Romeo was. I questioned her about him and what had happened. He never told her he was married, and to top it off they hadn't used protection. Didn't even get his mobile number either, which made tracking him down impossible when she found out she had contracted a nasty STD and was pregnant. His profile disappeared from Match.com the day after he walked out. She did send a message to them, but heard nothing back. Sadly, she didn't make it to full term. I moved out about 2 years after, at which point she was happily with a new guy. Okay, toss it if you want, but I have to tell this story. I am old, and there was no internet when this happened. Do you remember that extremely hot girl from high school? This one we had was completely untouchable and untouched. Just amazing. College guys used to drool over this girl, but no action for them either. So needless to say, she was forever a part of the spank bank and nothing more. Fast forward a few years, and I returned from military service. I was 6 feet 1 inch and close to 250 pounds of tan muscle, just as bright too. Anyway, I run into her at a party, and she is still amazing looking. Out of nowhere we are talking, laughing and dancing. This goes on for the next few nights of meeting up. About 1 week into it all, she decided that we should go to my place to watch, gasp, movies on my VCR. Hey, this was high-tech shit and expensive. So anyway, the evening turns into staying the night. I find myself standing over arguably one of the most beautiful women in Texas. Me, there, with her. I am trying my best with her, so I work the foreplay like my life depended on it. Nothing. All of this shit has worked before. I mean, I can get almost no reaction out of her. I just had no clue WTF was happening. I worked that shit over so long that people thought I had a speech impediment for the next week. Nothing. After about 3 or 4 hours, I passed out from exhaustion. No, I never even tried to fuck. I was so tunnel-visioned on getting her to come that I genuinely lost the mood. So the morning comes and I wake up. She is all smiles and in the kitchen making us breakfast. Amazing. Her standing there naked except for my shirt. In MY kitchen for me. Almost 30 years later, the vision still makes me smile. Anyway, I ask her how last night was. I am expecting to be apologizing for fucking it up somehow. Instead, she tells me all this crap about how wonderful it was, and I mean some serious bragging. If my jaws had not been half swollen into some form of lockjaw, I know my jaw would have hit the floor. She claimed multiple orgasms. I promise I never felt a muscle twitching. It never happened. I am young, stupid, and honestly enthralled. She is amazing. We spent the next day out by the lake. That night I am determined to go for the gold. I am going to fuck her so hard, and so long there will be something. This will be screwing on a near historic level. Now I am not hung in a legendary manner, but I can work it. It's normal enough, but with that gyration, you know she is definitely getting hers. All in. And with the silent battle charge, I hit it with all the gusto a young 20-something in peak physical condition can. This turns into like a 6-hour marathon of foreplay, fucking and exhausted cuddling. Through it all, I swear to you, nothing showed on her. She was the most dead lay I have ever heard of from anyone. During the next few days, I told her why this was not working. She did not take it well, but obviously had no control of it all. For the next 20 years, I had no contact with her. Through a friend, I found out that all during those early years, she had been sexually abused by her father. To this day, I feel so bad about not knowing or being there to stop it that I feel like vomiting. You never know what is really happening with people. It makes me sad and angry. I am told her father killed himself when the truth came out. Plenty of fish story here. So this girl starts messaging me. She says she thinks I'm interesting, handsome, wants to meet up. She's attractive and seems like she has her life in order, going to college for business / not living at home. So we meet up and go to P.F. Chang's. Good conversation, though she awkwardly comments on how handsome I am, and then proceeds to draw our waitress into that conversation, asking her, "Wow, isn't he handsome?" Okay, whatever, I don't mind my ego being stroked, and it is our first date. We finish up, get ice cream, and she pitches the idea of watching a movie back at my place. I say okay, and she follows me back to my apartment. We get upstairs, pick out a movie, and as I'm getting it going, she looks me dead in the eye and tells me she's not hooking up with me and she doesn't sleep with people on the first date. I laughed and told her that's fine with me. Let's just chill and watch the movie. Well, 15 minutes into this movie, this girl is all over me. Not 15 minutes ago this girl is telling me nothing's going to happen, and is now shoving her tongue down my throat and pulling me into my bedroom. The sex is great, and she is a squirter, which was new for me, but no complaints. She spends the night, even waking me up later in the morning with a blowjob in round 2. The morning comes, I figure she'll find her way out. My roommate was there, but in his wow phase, but at least he was there, and I head to work. I come home, walk up the stairs, and find her talking to my roommate. I'm surprised she's still there. I shrug it off, I make dinner. We eat and again have ourselves some hot sex. The morning comes, I get up, head to work. At work, I message my roommate, asking if she's left. He says he doesn't know. I come home, and lo and behold, she's sitting on my couch watching TV. I gave her a look. The kind of look that says, "Why are you still here?" She looks at me sheepishly and says, "I skipped class today and decided to just chill here." Before I can really think it over, she starts pulling me into the bedroom, and of course another evening goes by. Despite the hot sex and her being very attractive, I have a scene she is slowly digging her claws into me. I also realize that we actually have very little in common, and our conversations have little substance. The morning comes and I again head off to work. She's still asleep as I go to work at 6:30. I send her a message a little later telling her I'm having fun, but this is going too fast and I need some space. Note she's now been at my place for 3 full days and is now wearing my clothes. She doesn't respond. I come back from work and there she is again, sitting watching TV on the couch. I look at her and she at me. I flat out tell her, "All right, it's time to go." She gave me this wounded look and I told her this was getting weird for me, and while I've had a good time, I need some time for myself. She then proceeded to drag her feet, getting changed into her original first date clothes, all the while telling me how she thinks I'm perfect and she wants to stay here with me, and on and on and on. So I basically put up with it long enough to escort her to her car, which was parked around the building in my complex, and I see it's loaded with shit, like personal items, boxes, etc. At this point, I just want to see her drive away, and she's still trying to convince me to let her stay. I'm like, "Nope, but I'll be in touch." So she finally leaves, but for the next 2 weeks is messaging me about being together, getting married, all that. I find out she isn't in college, but taking some BS online program, and is sleeping on her friend's couch. I wished her success and happiness, and then blocked her. I met a guy named Robert Christian. It's definitely not even his real name, so it's okay. We had talked for 4 hours on the phone before meeting. We just clicked, and it was weird. It felt too good to be true. This guy thought so similarly to me, and was into all the same things I loved. We went on a fairly normal first date in Laguna Beach. Dinner, beach walk, etc. He did get a little pushy towards the end with being kissy and handsy, but I didn't find it abnormal for a horny guy that I met online. I was debating a second date with him, and definitely would have gone on one. If not less than a week later, he shows up at my university, and we're walking across the park. Kinda cute, but I was also a little weirded out that he just showed up out of the blue, seeing as we only had one date. He's skateboarding through the park. I remember thinking how his longboard was going to catch on the uneven asphalt. Isn't it funny how weird moments are such vivid memories? And he proceeded to tell me he was in love with me. I started laughing even though it was awkward, even as a joke, and then slowly freaked out and got so red as I realized he wasn't kidding. I had to get out of there ASAP. I had such a pit in my stomach and somehow just felt so wrong and creeped out that I was getting roped into something. He kept telling me how he's never felt like this before. He loved me so much, how beautiful I was, etc. So many compliments. For some reason at the time, I just felt like it was more than just a delusional guy moving way too fast. Because I felt this weird scared I still kind of played along with it, worried that if somehow he didn't like my answer he could hurt me. Ick, so many thoughts in my mind. So I still gave him some affection and told him this was all happening way too fast, and I needed some time to think things through. I made a hurried excuse to get to class and sped off. After class I had tons of missed calls from him, and still had this pitting feeling that I couldn't make him mad. I stupidly let him pick him up from my house on our first date. I know, an online dating no-no, but I had so many average dates with normal dudes at this point I got careless. I picked up, and he went on and on about the same things from earlier. Basically just trying to get me to tell him and validate all the things he was saying earlier. I still kinda laughed it off and told him I needed some time. We had gone on one date. He did not get it. He wouldn't stop calling, so I finally just blocked him and was just going to take my chances if he showed up at my house. I never saw him again. Fast forward 6 months later. I get a text out of the blue from an iCloud email, iMessage on a Mac, asking if I knew a guy named Robert Christian. I was not forgetting that name anytime soon. Who is this? I asked before answering. She proceeded to tell me her name, and that her friend's dad was a cop, and that they needed to know if I knew this guy. They supposedly accessed my number from his call logs the police pulled. This sounded so fishy. Without me offering any information other than confirmation that I knew someone by that name, they texted me to send any pictures of texts between me and him and photos we had exchanged. They told me he was wanted in Florida for evading child support, and he would tell girls he loved them to try and impregnate them and spread his seed. A lot of things matched up to things he told me. It was weird. It was either him pranking me, a dedicated 6-month prank, or they were telling some truth. I told them if they needed anything from me that a cop or some authoritative figure needed to contact me directly. No way a text from a MacBook was legitimate. Needless to say, I didn't hear from them again. Not even kidding. 6 months later, I get another text from another iCloud account asking me if I knew Robert Christian. OMG, not again, are you serious? I demanded to know who it was. I was done with this. WTF. I told her as much, and she proceeded to tell me he was sending her son inappropriate photos, and she needed to get in contact with him. This weirded me out. How did she get my number? I was convinced this was a year-long dedicated prank. What the actual hell? Haven't had a weird text since then, other than creepy Craigslist spammers. This was 2013 or so. When relayed to my friends over the years, the moral was they told me to never trust a man with 2 first names. Not me, but one of my buddies met this girl on Tinder, and they ended up hitting it off. I was wary though because she was like 5 years older than him. He was I think 17 at the time. He kept telling me how much he liked her, and that she was really attractive and all that stuff. He ended up going out on a date with her, and they went to the movies. Me and the girl and another of my friends met up to get food before going to a movie. I kind of asked him how he was feeling about it, and he said something to the effect of, "I'm good bro, I got a piece on me right now." I assumed he meant he just had his pocket knife in case shit got wacky. Me and the other friend were going to go with him, but it was snowing, and the movie theater they were going to was a good distance away, so my dad didn't want me driving out there. Anyway, they go on the date, and my friend texts me that something is wrong. The girl ends up being disabled and has to use crutches to walk, and the crutches are the ones that go on your arms for when your legs are pretty fucked up. Now, I don't think my friend had any issue with disabled people. It was more the fact that she hid it from him. It was also a sort of catfish situation, because once my friend actually saw her in the light, she was not as attractive as she made it seem when he was FaceTiming her or whatever. Once they're in the theater, the girl keeps trying to get in my buddy's pants, but he's not into it because she isn't cute and she's disabled, and it almost felt wrong. When they get back to the car, she tells him that she has to just go pick up a friend real quick, and then she can take him home. He doesn't really want to, but she made it seem like it was close, so he agreed. At this point, he's texting me and the other friend that the date did not go well, and that they're now going to pick up a friend. Me and the friend were now getting real worried because we thought the girl was already shady and something just wasn't right. Come to find out, the friend that the girl had to pick up lived like 50 minutes away from where my buddy did. Plus, when the friend, who was a guy probably mid-20s and tall, got into the car, he sat directly behind my friend. Which is normal, I guess, but the guy leaned up real close behind my friend, so it was really sus. And now my friend is texting me like, "Dude, I don't know where they're taking me because they aren't dropping me back off." He said he was scared and that he had his gun still. Now, I didn't even realize that when he said peace, he meant that he was carrying a handgun illegally. Now, me and my friend are calling 911 saying that our friend was in the process of getting kidnapped. The only issue is that no one we knew had his phone number, so the cops couldn't figure out where he was. And his snap maps was off because the guy behind him had told him to put his fucking phone away. While I'm trying to call the cops, my buddy is wondering if he should pull the gun on them because it was obvious that they were not taking him home. And my buddy was in the army, so he knew how to use it. And the girl is driving crazy as hell, running reds, going 20 over the speed limit. And then the guy behind my friend says, "Quit driving crazy, I don't want to get caught for this shit." And now my friend is like, "Oh fuck, I'm actually getting kidnapped right now." Then he's at a stoplight right before the highway, and he's gone forever. My buddy fucking bolts from the car because it was one of those cars that the door auto opens from inside even if it's locked. He literally sprinted for at least 2 miles to get to a gas station that's like 10 minutes from his house. He cut across streets, so it would be really hard for the people to follow him as well. He calls his brother, who has a couple felonies, and says, "Did you gotta come fucking pick me up? This bitch was crazy. And I got a piece on me right now, you gotta come get me now." His brother is there in like 3 minutes and picks my friend up, and he goes home never to hear or see from the girl again. It was so fucking crazy because where I live, sex trafficking and drugs are big, and kidnapping stories aren't that deep until it's super real, as in your friend is literally being taken and you can't do anything. I met up with a Tinder match in a foreign country, and probably would have been kidnapped if my friends hadn't traveled with me. This ended up being a long one, sorry in advance. I was about a week into a study abroad program in Korea, and I figured I'd see what the Tinder pool was like there. I matched with this guy, and he seemed nice. It turned out that he was hanging out in Hongdae, which was close to where I was staying, so we made plans to meet up and hang out face to face. I want it to be known that Hongdae is a very public place that's always teeming with college students and street performers, especially at night. Despite that, I still asked 2 of my friends to accompany me there and follow at a distance to keep an eye on things. I was a little worried about what could go wrong if I went alone, and I am so glad that my friends came with me. My friends and I took the train to Hongdae, and we split ways when we arrived at the platform. When we met up, the first few minutes of face-to-face conversation were fine, and he still seemed pretty nice, so we decided to walk around and see what was going on in the district. This is about when things started to make me uncomfortable. Now, I'm not generally opposed to physical contact, but this dude would not let go of me. The moment we walked away from the train station, he either kept his arm around my shoulder or a grip on my arm. At first I thought, hey, it's a busy area, maybe he doesn't want us getting separated. But every time I wanted to walk in a direction that he didn't want to walk in, or I turned to look at something, he would immediately tighten his grip and force me where he wanted to go. After a while, I noticed that although we were stopping in stores and at street stalls to see what the district had to offer, he was leading me further and further away from the main streets. An important thing to note is that if you don't have a Korean SIM card, your phone will not work in the country unless you're on Wi-Fi. The problem with that is, even though almost every single store and restaurant has Wi-Fi, you couldn't connect to any of the networks unless you were a paying customer and got the Wi-Fi password as a result. At this point in the night, I couldn't see my friends anywhere nearby, and I started panicking. I didn't have a SIM card, so I was desperately hoping that my phone would connect to a network that I had previously connected to the last time I had been in Hongdae. It was by some miracle that my phone connected to a Wi-Fi network, and a message from one of my friends came. It was unfortunate that it said my friends had lost sight of me. We made a stop in another store, and my phone was still connected to the Wi-Fi. Another message came in, this time from the study abroad group chat. One of the other people on the program wanted to get a group together to go karaoke. Someone had thrown me a line, and by God was I going to bite. Now, it was possible that I was overreacting. I was meeting up with a guy from Tinder, and I was in a foreign country. Of course I was tense, and I was probably being dramatic. Nope. I told the guy about how I needed to get back because a group of people wanted to get together to hang out, and he got weird. Well, I guess he got weirder. He started accusing me of not having a good time, and saying that I only wanted to go back because there were probably more attractive guys in the group that wanted to hang out. He kept asking me if I thought he was ugly, and if I wished I hadn't met with him. He started to accuse me of lying about the group of people wanting to hang out, and demanded to see the message. I pulled up the group chat to show him the message, and he grabbed my phone from me and started tapping on the pictures of the guys in the group chat. He kept saying things like, "Oh, this guy is attractive. Is he the one you want to hang out with?" And, "Do you think this guy is better looking than me?" I didn't want to aggravate him, so I kept telling him that no, I didn't think the other guys were more attractive, and that I really just wanted to hang out with the group and get to know them all better. Thankfully, he gave me my phone back, but he grabbed my arm and started walking us in a random direction again. At this point, I figured that I might as well tell him about my friends that had accompanied me to Hongdae. I saw it as a sort of last-ditch effort to get him to let me leave. He started drilling me with questions again, this time asking me if they had been following us around, if they had seen his face, and if they were guys. I told him that my friends and I had split up as soon as we arrived at the train station, and that I didn't know where they were, but they knew I was there and with him. He didn't say anything else and kept walking us around, and I pretty much resigned myself to whatever would happen. I know that's stupid, but I have zero fighting instinct. Next thing I knew, we were at the train station I had met him at, and he let go of me and ran. He didn't say goodbye or anything. He literally let go of my arm and sprinted away. My friends and I immediately left to go back to where we were staying once we were able to find each other. I'm absolutely convinced that something bad would have happened to me if I hadn't mentioned that I was accompanied to Hongdae. So yeah, it's always a good idea to let people know where you're going when you're meeting up with someone from Tinder. It's even better when those people go with you. There's safety in numbers. So about 5 years ago, I got out of a hellish, sex-deprived, at the end, unfaithful relationship where my heart got broken. The second week after kicking her out, I wanted to start meeting girls/women for hookups, so I headed to Tinder. I go on a few dates, but nothing really clicked. At the time, I was in very good shape and above average attractive, but I had been out of the game for so long that I was having a hard time closing the deal with the dates. So I decided to amp up my age range from 22 to 32. I was 25. To 22 to 50, just completely hitting the screw it button and saying I'll take what I can take. I was warned this would end badly and didn't listen. So I matched with this 41-year-old, very pretty, incredible body, down-to-earth woman. Right out of the gate, she messages me. I'm getting out of a relationship too. I'm just looking for someone to keep my needs satisfied. My profile explained my situation rather bluntly. So I agree at work, at 1:45 p.m. to go over her house right after work with condoms, lube, weed, and Red Bull per her request. I get there, beautiful 2-bedroom ranch, upscale part of town, BMW and driveway. I call her, and she meets me in the garage. As soon as I walk in, she says, "Let's get the first time out of the way tonight, then we can chat before we go at it again." We were both off the next day, so the plan was to lock ourselves inside knocking boots for a long time. We end up having our first go at it, for over 2 hours where she wasn't into anything freaky, but it was incredible for both of us. It's now 8:30 p.m., worked until 6, and we go to sit down and talk. This lasted about 30 minutes until we started to go at it again for another hour and a half. She asks if she can record us, and I said I wasn't okay with that. She said you hold the camera, and I agreed. She starts amping up her game, some serious porn star stuff. It was great. Everything was going in a great direction, and it was still before midnight. Until I went to the bathroom. I use the restroom and clean up in there for a hot minute, and come out. We get to talking about our previous relationship and how awful they were, and she gets up to go to the bathroom. This is where it gets crazy. Sorry for the rant, I have been holding this in for 5 years, and just saw this and had to jump on it. She comes out of the bathroom worked up and starts screaming, "Where did you put it? What did you do with it?" The bathroom was connected to the living room we were in, so as I walked out of the bathroom, I could see her on the couch. I couldn't have gone anywhere. I ask, whoa, what are you talking about? She screams, "My plant, my big plant. What did you do with it?" Confused, I looked back at her and said, "What? What happened to it? Is it broken or something?" She screams, "It's gone. Where did you put it?" I have no idea what she was on about. I try to act calm and say, "I didn't take it or even touch it. I couldn't even describe it if I tried. How could I take it if I come directly out of the bathroom into this room?" She starts throwing candles, vases, remotes, anything she can find at me as hard as she could while screaming like a lunatic. Nothing I could even understand. So I say, "Yeah, I'm going to go. I am not sure what is going on, but I need to leave," and proceed to walk out. She follows me outside screaming bloody murder. "You come over here and F me on camera, and you try to steal from me." Again, that was her idea. I didn't want to do that. It's midnight, so her screams are echoing, and she was so loud. I try to get in my car, and she won't let me. She gets in front of my door and starts swinging at me to make me step back. She's screaming, "Don't you effing dare try to leave, you violate me, my home, and disrespect me and think you can leave. You're not going anywhere until I get my plant back," again screaming at the top of her lungs. I'm trying to calm her down and get her to have the conversation inside with the hopes of running to my car and getting out of there. She just keeps screaming and screaming. It's about 20 minutes later, and a cop car pulls up. 2 officers approach us, asking what the problem was, saying that they had received a lot of calls about what was going on. She looks at one of the officers and goes to hug him, saying, "Danny, he stole Mom's plant and won't give it back." It's her brother. So now I am totally freaking out that I am going to get screwed by this women's relationship with the cop. Danny and the other officer calm her down and pull me aside. Danny looks at me and says, "So what's your side of the story?" I said, "Listen, officer, I am going to be completely honest here. I met her on Tinder earlier today, and she told me to come over tonight. I have all of the messages that show it was her idea. I don't know if I should go into detail because that's your sister, and I don't want to disrespect you in any way." He says it's fine, just explain, so I do, in full detail including the video and everything. He sighs and says, "Hold on." He goes to talk to his sister, she's bawling by the way, and before he takes her inside he asks me, "Do you have any belongings in the house?" I say no, and he takes her inside. As soon as he comes out she follows slowly behind watching what happens. At this point there are about 30 people crowding the surrounding driveway, watching everything unfold. Danny walks up to me and says, "Listen, my sister has gone through a lot since her divorce. Nothing on you, but she's on tough times. Do you want to press charges?" I say no, I want to go home. He turns over his shoulder and says, "To make this as simple and painless as possible with her, can I pretend to cuff you, put you in the back of my car, and have my partner follow us out in your car?" Astounded I stood there and said, "Excuse me?" He re-explains and says for her to not make another scene where she could potentially damage my car, this would be easiest. I say fine, and do it. He pretends to put cuffs on me and walks me to the back of his car. His partner takes my keys and gets in my car. We drive for about 10 minutes as Danny explains and apologizes for what happened. We get to a Taco Bell and he pulls in. He lets me out of the car and asks if I wanted anything. I decline and wait for my car. As we're waiting I ask him, "Is what we just did legal?" He looks at me and says, "It's helpful, here's my card. If you ever need anything within reason, please let me know." And he saves my name and number in his phone. I leave and go home. I never got to contact him, which I guess is a good thing. The worst part about all of this is about 2 months later I meet another girl, my age, and we start to seriously date. She tells me she wants me to meet her parents, so I agree. We leave her apartment in her car to drive out to her parents. I get this odd feeling that something is familiar. We pull into the driveway and go inside. Her parents are nice, sweet, and kind. We start to have dinner and there's a knock on the door. Her father says, "Our next door neighbor wants to meet you. She practically helped raise Lori, my GF." A chill goes down my spine as the plant lady walks in. I have no words, frozen in fear and disbelief. I must have been pale because Lori asked me, "Are you okay?" Before I can answer, the plant lady says, "Oh, I'm sure he's scared shitless right now. I can't believe you have the balls to be here." Silence, fear, sweat, all at once, still cannot find words. Her mother asks, "Do you two know each other?" The plant lady says, "Oh, he's the one you called the police on, the guy who raped me, stole from me, and got arrested. Are you out on bail?" "I don't want you with my Lori. You probably defiled her as well." Turning to Lori, she says, "You need to get tested because he gave me something." I am contemplating suicide by butter knife. I still can't find words. Her mother says, "Get the F*** out of my house. Remember, I didn't drive." Lori says she'll take me home, and her father says, "No, I will take him back. You are not to see this criminal ever again." I stand up and finally say, "That simply isn't true, but I am not here to argue or cause a scene. You're hearing one side to a story that Lori knows." I turn to Lori and say, "This is the date I was talking about, the one with the plant." Lori just puts her head down and says, "You should go." I say, "I'll walk to the end of the development and order an Uber." Her father says, "No, I will take you home." We get in the car, petrified, and start to drive to Lori's apartment in silence. As we get to her apartment, he says, "If I ever hear your name or see as much as a like on Lori's Facebook, I will come after you. She is my only child, and she is an innocent girl. I don't want her to be with a criminal rapist." I tell him that it is not true, and that his neighbor needs serious mental health. He goes, Yeah, which is why you left in the back of a cop car. You're not going to fool me. Don't make me repeat myself." I get out of the car and get in mind to go home. I call my friends to tell them what happened, and Lori calls me. I tell my buddy to go on mute, and I add her into the call. She tells me that she thought that she could really love me, and that I could have been someone she could have shared the rest of her life with, How could I be such a two-faced person? I try to explain myself, but it doesn't work, and the call ends with a complete and total break in communication. It was heartbreaking because she was an absolute incredible human being, and I could have married her. She was my one who got away. I swore off dating sites, and eventually met my current GF that I have been with for 3.5 years, who I plan on marrying when the time comes. It was single-handedly the worst experience of my entire life, and I have had 4 close family members die within a 2-week period. The legend of the plant lady still lives on, and has been told to all of my friends and current GF. I should have listened when my one buddy warned me that women over 40 with men under 30 is a bad idea. They're sex-craved lunatics if you meet them online. I never wanted to test the rule by having another encounter like that, so never again, never again. Thanks for taking the time to ready this short story. It was devastating, so I had a lot to get out. To sum up, male, 25, hooks up with female, 41, with passionate crazy sex. After multiple sessions and a bathroom break, she accuses me of stealing a plant, which leads to the cops getting called in the middle of the night. One of the cops being her brother, being fake handcuffed and departing in the back of a cop car to help the cop who was the brother out. 2 months pass, dating a girl, met her parents. Plant lady lives next door, helped raise GF at the time, got accused of rape and theft. Driven to my car and threatened by the father. Talked to the GF, she broke it off completely. Could have been the one. Never Tinder hookup with older women if you are under 30. It's scary. While living in Sydney, Australia, I used Tinder. I went on a date with a Danish girl called Lena. We met in a cool wee bar in the oldest part of Sydney. We had several drinks there, and we were getting on really well. I settled our tab, and we moved into the next bar. We went to a pretty grubby Irish bar. At the bar she asked me what I would like, and I had a bottle of beer. She ordered herself a double JD and Coke. Face with raised eyebrow when the bill came this round was apparently also on me, which was my first alarm bell. We proceeded to sit in a quiet spot down the back of the bar, so that we could chat a bit more when I found myself being kissed. This went on for a while until she asked if we could sit closer to the front of the bar. We sat next to 2 guys who were popping in and out for a smoke. She then joined them for a smoke and left me looking after the table. A few minutes passed, and they came back and she was sitting opposite me, and we chatted for a bit longer, until I noticed that her foot was in the crotch of the guy sitting next to me. I gasped, "What are you doing, Lena? We were on a date." She responded she was European and was only being friendly. I quickly replied that I was European too and we're not that friendly. The guy got uncomfortable and went outside. She assured me that she liked me and there was nothing going on, so the date continued. We chatted a bit more until she went out for a smoke and then came back. Getting up for a smoke and chatting to other guys continued for a while. I decided to leave. I got up, went to the bathroom, put my jacket and hat on, and was about to leave, but I decided to stay, and I can't explain why. While I was waiting, a group of girls arrived, and I instantly recognized one of them. We had matched on Tinder and chatted for a while, but she ghosted me. When they sat down beside me, they asked for a chair, but I said it was my date's seat. They asked where she was, and I pointed to the Lena chatting to another fella. My Tinder girl came over to me and asked if I recognized her, and I explained I did, and had wondered why she stopped chatting with me. She told me that because I was Irish, she didn't want to get involved in case I was a tourist, which I guess is understandable. Next thing, she jumps onto my knee and starts to kiss me, and suddenly I feel a tap 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 on my shoulder. There is a huge guy looming over me, bearing in mind I'm 6 foot tall and 100 kilograms. "You're supposed to be on a date with this girl," and he points to Delina across the bar, looking very miffed. I responded, "I know that's what I thought too, but I haven't seen her this past hour." He shrugged and left me to it. My new Tinder girl and I swapped numbers, and we dated for a short while, and the funniest part was she was called Lena too. While living in London, I met a girl on Tinder in one of the cool old pubs in central London. We had a fantastic date. It felt like we both really opened up and got to know each other. We had lived similar lives up to that point. The night went on, and we had a bit much to drink. She came back to my flat for a nightcap. I think we maybe opened a bottle of wine or a beer and pretty much went to bed. I think she may have been surprised that I wasn't the kind of guy to sleep with someone on a first date. I woke up in the middle of the night with this person on top me and sleeping with me. I pushed her off and asked what on earth she was thinking. I let her stay the remainder of the night, and the next morning, she claimed to have no memory of the incident. We didn't see each other again after that. I had taken a break from dating for a while living in London, as I'm sure you're aware it becomes a bit much. But I had added and deleted the dating apps over the few months leading up to my deletion. On a Thursday evening I decided to give it a go again. I matched with a girl that I seemed to regularly matched with. It was a bit of joke to her that I kept popping up and then disappearing, and she told me this on the Friday. So after some pestering I agreed to meeting with her, but I regularly cycled to work and explained that as it was impromptu I'd be in my PE kit. We decided to meet a wee pub near my work and close to where she lived. A close friend had been texting me during the day and trying to get me to come out for a drink with her, but I hadn't got back them, which they felt was a bit odd behavior. I had a great night getting to know this girl, and we got on really well. We ended up having a bit much to drink, and I couldn't cycle home, so she let me stay on her sofa. When I checked my phone on the morning, I had countless missed calls from my friend, my sister, and an anonymous number, with multiple text messages asking where I was. I called my friend to let her know I was all right, and she explained that she was with the police, and they were looking for me as I had been reported as a missing person. My friend panicked and contacted my sister to see if she had heard from me. As my sister hadn't, they decided it was for the best to report me as missing in case I'd be knocked down on my bike. So myself and my new friend waited in a local cafe to prove to police I was alive, well, and in fact not missing. My friend, who I ironically met on Tinder but became platonic friends, would sometimes invite a Tinder date to come hang out with us when we went FO a bar. There is one that I will never stop giving her shit for because of the night I went through. So we are at the bar and she asks if it's cool for a guy to come through that she had been talking to. I didn't mind, it was a slow night and nothing was really going on. So this guy rolls in and instantly I'm getting vibes. He was 6 foot tall, medium build with slick back hair and a goatee. He was wearing a flannel and leather cut with some blue jeans and boots. He set his helmet on the bar and shook my hand, squeezing it, trying to show dominance. He sat down and we started talking. He used to be in the military as a sniper. He was pretty quiet, but would hold a conversation decently well. The bar closed, and he asked if we wanted to come back to his place to hang out. I didn't have work the next day, and so I said fuck it. As we left I noticed his screensaver for the first time. It was straight up a Confederate flag. Then I paid more attention to his cut, and on the side that I couldn't see when he was sitting he had a little Confederate patch. My mind started screaming, but I kept my cool until we got into the car to follow him back. I instantly brought it up to my friend, and she said we could stay for a few minutes, and then make something up and leave. She didn't want to rude. We followed him back to his apartment, only to find that it was a motel in a sketchy area. My mind again started screaming at me that something wasn't right. I told my friend before we went in there that I was down to stay for 10-minute max, and then was going to make up something about getting sick from drinking. We went inside, and the first thing I noticed was the giant screwdriver flat over his bed. For those of you that don't know, Screwdriver was a racist skinhead band with songs like White Power ECT. My friend didn't know who they were, but unfortunately, I was a misguided youth at one point. I've come a long, long way since. Then I saw his other motorcycle cut, and it was for a majorly famous biker gang with full patches. It had Nazi bolts on the collar and other shit. I was taken back. His house also reeked of catbox. He had 2 cats, and it was really weird to see him go all mushy to his cats. We ended up smoking some dabs, and my friend passed the fuck out. She is the heaviest sleeper I've ever known. This is where shit gets wild. This dude tells me his whole fucking beliefs with no segues into it whatsoever, ever, just boom. He started with the fact that he knows gravity doesn't exist because he was a sniper, and went into detail about something that I don't remember, but it was fucking crazy. I was pretty lit at the time he was telling me this, and I remember picking up my wallet, dropping it, waving my hands like a magician as it fell, saying gravity. He didn't think it was as funny. That wasn't the worst part either. He then, with a completely straight face, says, "You know the earth is flat, right?" At this point I looked to my passed out friend hoping that she would just wake up suddenly, and we would go, but I spent 3 fucking hours there. I got hungry, and we went to a bodega nearby, and he said some racist shit about some of the homeless people nearby. By now he had already showed me 3 of the guns he had at his house, so I held any comments to myself. He got me some Conscious and a Red Bull because I hadn't slept at all, and by this time it was 6 in the morning. I asked if he wanted to get something for my friend, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's right," like he had forgotten about her completely. We got back and she was fucking thankfully awake. I said something like, "Yo dude, we am pretty beat, we are gonna hit the road." He asked for my number and told me he wanted to hang out sometime. I told him to give me his, and I would hit him up sometime. He didn't even hug my friend or get up to walk us out just a piece with his hands, and we left. I was so shook. My friend could tell and asked me what's wrong, but I waited till we got to the car. Soon as we got in and I looked around, I just started yelling, "You a WTF, you just make me SIT through FOO," and filled her in on my night with her Tinder date. I deleted his number, and she took me to a diner for an apology breakfast. He ended up trying to hang out, and she made up an excuse, but he pushed and said he felt a connection, LOL. So she told him she was uncomfortable with the whole racism deal and him being a flat earther. He said the racism was just part of club life and that he stood firm in his beliefs, and then said some pretty rude shit. This was before Tinder, dating on Craigslist. Spoke to a girl for a bit. She's into movies and hasn't seen one I have, so the plan is for her to come over to watch. So I drive to get her, and she lives in the worst ghetto I've ever been in. I try to text her that I'm outside, but I get some error message that I can't text a landline. As I'm calling her, some other car on the street in front of me starts honking for his buddy, and takes off right as this girl comes out her front door. The first thing she asks, kinda pissed off, is if I was honking for her. Not a great start, but I convince her it isn't me and GTFO of the ghetto as fast as possible. Driving to my place, we pass a bus stop, and she leans out the window to shout at some people she recognized that she was in a car. We get to my place, and I offer her some ice cream. She insists on boiling water and dunking my spoons in it before she eats from them. Weird, but whatever. We smoke and start the movie. Now my move back then was smooth. My TV was right in front of my queen-sized bed, and the only other place to sit was a single recliner. So we hop in bed, start watching the movie, and a few minutes later I make my move. She's down, so this is a done deal. Except it wasn't. She's on her back and still manages to get her tongue all the way to the back of my throat. I have no idea how she did it. So much tongue. Then she throws her arm up, and I am hit by the most offense BO I've ever smelled. It was like this girl was allergic to showers. Good Lord. And then the trifecta. A mouse is in the center of the room, watching me get tongue strangled by this smelly girl. I'm not a mouse guy, and I want to leave ASAP. All I can think about is all the traps and poison I need to buy, and what is open. I accidentally / on purpose drop a remote near the mouse to scare it away, and track where it runs off to. I back off her, and we finish the movie. The second it's over, I tell her I'll drive her home. She looks bummed, but I need to get out of my mouse palace. She asks if we can smoke again, and I agree just to get this over with. On the drive home, she's telling me how mad her mom is going to be when she comes home this late. She also tells me she's a nympho. I'm still thinking about that mouse, and I'm baked, so the thought of road head doesn't even cross my mind. If I thought her place was in a bad area when I picked her up, the ghetto at night showed me how bad it really is. The second she closed her door, I took off, and I instantly got lost. Not a great time to be high. I pulled up to a gas station to ask for directions. The lights were on, but no one was around, so I got out to go to the front door. Locked. Some car pulls into the lot behind me. So I'm pretty sure I'm about to get robbed and die, but thankfully it's a cab driver. He asks me what I'm doing, and I tell him I'm lost and looking for the highway. He just points. I jump in my car and take off that direction. I'm so happy to be leaving I don't pay good attention, and completely bottom out the car going over a curb out of the parking lot. It was loud. Did not sound good. The rest of the story is uneventful. Found the highway, slept at my aunt's, bought traps and poison, never talked to that girl again. The next girl I met online, I married 6 years later. Been together 13 this year. Another story to add. A couple of years ago, I had matched with the classic douche. All about his cars, tattoos, and believed weed was better than taking antidepressants. Well, he was hot, I was desperate for a good make-out session, and he messaged me one day striking a conversation. One thing led to another, and he convinced me to drive an hour and a half to see him. Like I said, I was desperate, and I was just glad I was getting any attention. We met up, he buys us pizza and ice cream, we make out, and then he tells me I can spend the night, which was nice, but I think you know where this is going. Fast forward a month later, and we are talking daily, but only on Snapchat. He seemed to only want to keep the stupid streak, and whenever I asked when we could see each other again, he would make some excuse that he was moving and didn't have time. One time I offered to help pack his things, and his excuse was, "I'll have to ask my landlord." What? I was young and dumb and missed affection, so I blew off every red flag. We finally saw each other once more, and it wasn't anything special. He was hanging with his friend the entire time, and I was bummed I made the trek there and back in the same day. It was a lot of driving for the lack of attention. Fast forward another month, and I completely cut him off. I don't reply to his snap, the streak ends, and we don't speak for a couple of weeks. Then one night my roommates and I drove down to his area to watch a Christmas parade. I had posted a pic with the name of the location as the filter, and lo and behold he messaged me because he saw I was on his area, and it was all about his convenience for sex. This pissed me off because I knew at this point he was just a douche who needed therapy, and I didn't need that toxic shit in my life. I replied very dryly and confronted him that he doesn't speak to me for weeks and refuses to hang out with me. But when I happen to be in his area, he acts like everything is fine. Well, this set him off, and he said, "LOL, not even gonna argue," and blocked me from everything. Things I didn't even follow him on. Fast forward about a month later, and I was telling my friend about the ordeal, and she decided to stalk him. We find out he has been in a relationship with a girl for months. Like, before he and I even started talking. Like, during the time we hooked up. Like, during the time he messaged me again asking to hang out. If you're wondering, yes. I did message the girl and told her in a nice but stern way about how I had been seeing him. I apologized and had no idea, of course, and she replied with a simple thumbs up. A week later, we saw he was single again. When I look back, there were so many red flags that he was in the relationship. He only messaged me using Snapchat, not text, so it's easy to delete evidence. He had posted a pic of him at the gym one time wearing a weird handkerchief around his neck, but I realize now he was just hiding his hickeys I gave him. And he didn't want to hang out because, of course, he had a girlfriend. So there's the story of my being the other woman because of a Tinder douche. Mine's from Bumble, but it's the same basic principle. Frankly, I wish I had made this up, and I guess this is my way of getting it off my chest. I tried out Bumble on the recommendation of a friend of mine who had met his girlfriend of 3-ish years, and counting, on the app. Girls message first, which I appreciated since I'm awful at making moves. I thought to dip my toes in a little bit, try to get a couple conversations going before trying to proceed with anything. So my first match on the app is a girl about 40 miles from me. She leads with hi. I guess brevity is the essence of wit. So, I ask how her day's going, and this is where shit gets whack. I'm gonna kill myself today. Wanna help? Hopefully needless to say, I was spooked. There's some background to be known here. First, I have the social skills of a drunken garden slug. I have a difficult time telling when someone's bullshitting me or pulling the wool over my eyes, especially when the main method of contact is text. Second, I am a deeply empathetic individual, and if someone is in a dark place, it isn't in my nature to just up and leave, even when shit is obviously pretty fucked, even if it's fucked to a degree I can't even begin to help with. I try to give people a second head to bounce things off of, or just listen if that's what they need. And third, I had 3 part-time jobs as well as a 16-credit semester, and had been awake for around 30-some-odd hours at this point. Basically, I wasn't in the most lucid/reasonable state of mind. So I ask her what happened. She asks me to call her, and gives me her number. I'm about to get into class, so I ask if I can call her later that evening. So that evening rolls around, and I give her a call. Long story short, she worked a dead-end job at a retirement home, still lived with her parents, and had no goals, aspirations, or what have you. Her parents largely ignored her, and she struggled with making genuine emotional connections with people. She had a lot of guys use her for sex, with one-night stands and the like being pretty common. I tried to listen more than to talk, since it was pretty clear that this was building up for a long time, and I may very well have been the only one to ask and or listen. We talked for about 45 minutes, with her venting and me just quietly listening. We text on and off for the next couple of days, then she goes quiet for about 6 days. I text her and just ask how she's doing. Who is this? Okay, ow. It's definitely a hard yeet. Sorry, is this? I could have the wrong number. No, this is. I refresh her memory, and she's in a difficult spot. She cut her wrist and arm up so bad she needed stitches. She sent me a photo, and I could tell she knew what she was doing. Down the road, not across the street. I ask that next time she wants to do that to herself, that she please give me a call or text me. She promises to, and I'm feeling good. Maybe I can help out someone in a dark place. But the next day is when it goes so far south that I end up in Antarctica. She had a one-night stand, and she didn't know it was one. She's tired of it all and is going to end it. Disclaimer: I was coming off another all-nighter, so again, I wasn't in a tremendously lucid state of mind. I beg her not to. Tell her that none of the problems she has in life will be solved if she did. I thought about calling the police, and in retrospect, I absolutely wish I had. Hell, if I had the chance to do it all over again, I would call the police. I ping her a few times, to no reply. I ask that if she's still reading my texts, to please call the suicide hotline. I know it sounds stupid and trivial, but there is help out there. Please don't give up. And I'm woken up the following morning at about 4:30 to a manic wall of text insisting that they don't help. I found this a curious assertion, considering that she's probably never called them, and if I had to guess, probably hadn't. Supposedly, she ended up in the emergency room, followed by a psych ward. I kind of furrow my brow at this, since she wouldn't have her phone in a psych ward. She claims to have gone after a couple nurses/orderlies, and that the only good part is that she got hurt worse than they did. But here's the catch. She was bullshitting me. I started to suspect this by the time she revealed it, considering the whole phone in a psych ward shtick. Aside, as someone who's been in a psych ward and genuinely dealt with this kind of shite, it was difficult for me not to go, "How fucking dare you?" She then launches into a panic attack, if it's even possible to tell such a thing over text. I ask her to try a technique that I had to use with relative frequency to push back or help mitigate a panic attack on the fly, and she calls me retarded. Another aside, it was difficult for me not to just go, "Alright, honey, fuck off." I guess the only reason I kept a level head was that she was already pissed off enough at the world and herself, so another angry voice wouldn't have helped any. However, I go quiet, ultimately deciding that she needs to just cool off for a while. Wrong again. She texts me a bit later, pissed off that I'm not replying. I tell her that I can't say anything to that, and that this isn't something that just goes away if you leave it alone. I tell her she needs help. Whatever. I'm blocking you. Soon as it had sunk in, I sat down at my desk and started going over work and homework. I didn't really come to terms with the whole ordeal until winter break of that semester, since I didn't have a ton of time to think about anything besides classes and work. When I was in high school, I was bad with girls. I don't just mean a stammering mess, I mean full-on gynaphobe. It had started getting better once I got to uni, and even better after my shitty vacation at a psych ward. But she dredged it all back up, and I'm only recently starting to pick up the pieces. I've got my own problems to sort out, and this was kind of a harsh lesson, albeit not unjust, that some people are in need of greater help than a verbal punching bag. I guess my biggest regret on the whole ordeal, aside from the fact that it even happened in the first place, was that I didn't call the police. Even if it just made matters worse for her, at least she might have thought twice before threatening to off herself at anyone who gave her the time of day. I'm not even angry or bitter at her, even despite what she said to me. I'm just sad for her sake. I hope she ended up getting the help she needed, and whether or not I was an integral part of that is irrelevant. This turned into a wall, so sorry about that. Thanks for listening. This happened about 2 years ago. Matched with this girl who lived in my area. She knew a few people I knew, but we never crossed paths. I didn't know much about her besides the fact that we both had mutual friends, or I should say acquaintances to say the least considering what I'm about to share. We spent about a week talking before we had plans to meet up. Through text she gave me no viable signs that she was heavy into drugs or any other kind of red flags. Just to throw that at there, I'm not one to judge. I'm not perfect, and I've had my share of experiences growing up. I've done drugs, partied, got into reckless situations, and what have you as a young male teenager going into my early 20s. I'm 27 now, so as I grew older that side of me definitely calmed down a whole lot. I made plans to meet her at a local Dunkin' Donuts on a Friday night. It was about halfway between where she lived and I lived, so I figured it was fair and neither of us had to do much traveling. Plus the area where the Dunkin' is was super busy and has a bunch of different shops, bars, restaurants, a movie theater, etc. It's the perfect place to bring someone for a first date, because you have plenty of options. I sent her a text as I was walking up to the Dunkin' letting her know I was close. She texted back saying something along the lines of, "Okay, I'll be right out in a second." I had just lit a cigarette, so I figured I'd have time to smoke it while I waited for her outside. By the time I finished, she still wasn't outside, so I decided I'd just go in and meet her. As soon as I walk into the shop, she's slowly getting up out of her seat. She looked like a zombie, and in the most monotone voice says, "Oh, hey," and proceeds to drop her purse on the floor. As I stated before, I'm not perfect, and I knew the signs of what she was on from experience. She was on so much Xanax she could barely function. Now, I'm not a piece of shit, so my first instinct was to put some food in her stomach and then pay for her Uber home. I was in no position to continue the date, and clearly neither was she. Plus, I did not want to be that guy who takes advantage of someone when they're that under the influence by taking them home. After I took her for some food, I talked with her for about an hour, then mentioned I'd feel more comfortable if we tried to continue this date at another time, and I'd gladly pay for her Uber home. It was like a switch flipped. She instantly got offended and upset, and started claiming how she canceled other plans to hang out with me, and how she came all this way, so she wants to enjoy her Friday night. I figured what the hell, and asked her if she wanted to come back to my place to smoke weed. She was on way too much drugs to drink, otherwise I would have offered to take her to a local bar instead like I originally intended. So I decided to pick the latter. We get back to my place, and I roll us up a joint. About halfway through smoking it, she looks at me with the most straight face and asks, "Do you mind if I call someone to bring me dog food?" For those of you who aren't aware, dog food is a street term for heroin. I may have done my share of narcotics and such, but I drew the line when it came to things like heroin, crack, and stuff I personally feel you can't come back from. I told her absolutely not. I wouldn't feel comfortable with that going on in my house. I let her know after we finished this joint I would call her a cab, and I was going to bed. When the joint finished, I called her an Uber, and then headed to my kitchen to grab us both a water bottle. I may have been done with this girl, but my mother raised me to be a hospitable person, lol. I have a nasty habit of putting away all my stuff when I step inside my house. That includes my keys, wallet, anything in my pockets really. As I grabbed the water, she took it upon herself to have a field day with the cash I had left in my wallet. Should have known better. I didn't realize it until the next morning after she had already left. I pray for any poor soul who had to deal with that train wreck after me. I've only ever went on one Tinder date, and it was with a guy from my uni who was a part of a frat on campus. Met up with him at his off-campus apartment where he lived with frat brothers. They were having a huge party. We both get drunk. I'm awkward as hell because his brothers are egging him on and giving him shit, as frat brothers do, for bringing a date. They chant at us to kiss, and we do, it's okay. We eventually decide to leave and take an Uber back to my place so he could stay over. I wasn't into the guy, so I was just going to offer him my bed, and I was going to go to my friend's place to sleep. So there's this pizza place nearby my apartment, and I suggested we get pizza and walk home. He's cool with it, but after we waiting ages for the pizza, he wanted to Uber to mine. He's really drunk and he's offering it, so whatever. I tried to convince him it was a really quick walk, but he wasn't having it. He called an Uber to mine, and me being tipsy didn't check how well he entered my address. Oops. We ended up in the middle of the city, 15 minutes away driving distance, when we were originally a 5-minute walk because neither of us were paying attention. It's late, I want to say almost midnight, and I am annoyed. My date's yelling at the Uber driver in a drunken stupor, saying it was his fault, and I'm sobering up now, apologizing on behalf of the now belligerent date I ended up with. He gets us kicked out of our Uber. So we call another Uber. He's holding the pizza box. I didn't get anything anyway. He didn't order anything vegetarian, just ordered for the both of us without asking me what I wanted. And I'm just silent. Second Uber comes, and it's a pool. Driver is a nice guy, picks us up and heads towards downtown to pick up 2 more people. Everyone's in the car, and it's me sandwiched between my date and a stranger in the back seat, with other stranger in the front passenger seat. They're brothers from Europe, I don't know. Date starts to get aggressive and cocky around these seemingly alpha male brothers who were admittedly older, huskier, and definitely more attractive to me than the drunk child I ended up with. I don't remember how the argument started, but the Uber driver warned the 3 guys to stop arguing, or else he'd have to kick all of us out. Date starts acting all high and mighty, saying he works in a fancy schmancy financial building, he knows people, and not to F***CK with him. OMG, I wanted to die. This guy was totally a man-child, and I was stuck between all 3 of them while he gradually pissed off these poor brothers. They obviously were about to kick his ass. I just wanted to be in bed. Remember the pizza box? Yeah, it's in my date's lap next to me. This guy, who I only met maybe 4 hours ago, is arguing with these 2 guys for what seems like forever, and suddenly opens the pizza box and pukes in the box. I am beside myself in disgust and shame. I wish I never downloaded Tinder. I regret being born. A scar in my permanent memory. But it gets worse. They're still arguing when we pull up to my place, threatening each other and talking about fighting. We all get out at my stop, Uber driver, the two brothers, my date, and I. They're all fighting while I just stare at the puke pizza box on the sidewalk, contemplating if I should try to dispose of it. No, I say to myself, I don't need any more stress. I managed to get my date away and into my building. I don't know why I decided to help him, but I think I'm just too nice, and I felt bad. Took him to my room, and he fell asleep on the bed, thank God, while I was in the bathroom. I put an alarm on his phone for 7 a.m., plugged it into the charger, and left him in my room, practically fleeing to my friend's place for the night. Worst date ever. I woke up the next day, headed back to my place, and he was gone thankfully. But he did piss himself in my bed. I deleted his number and Tinder, and never spoke to him again. This fucking nightmare ended about 2 hours ago. TLDR, shrink your Tinder radius. Don't do drugs. Don't do drugs with people you don't know. Don't do LSD with hookups. Listen to your very sober friend, and don't think with your dick. So 2 days ago, a friend of mine asks me for a ride to the gas station. Says he has a question he wants to ask me in person. Okay, I'm curious. He says there's this girl he's been talking to, and he wants to meet up, drop acid, hook up, but neither can drive, so he asks if I can drive to pick her up if he comps gas. Sure, okay, I'm not doing anything. He wants to go in the morning, okay. So it's 7:40 a.m. I've just picked him up. Stop at a gas station for some gas, snacks, cigarettes, and air. Gonna be great. Punch the details into GPS. It's a 40-minute drive. Okay, whatever. He's already tossed me some gas money. We drive down. It's a great drive. Sunny, breezy country highways. We lose reception about 10 minutes from her address. No huge deal. We've got playlists. Pick her up. She sits in the front while he's in the back behind me. Great drive back, windows down, cruise control, smoking cigarettes and bumping tunes. I got a few weird vibes from her, just spilling some heavy-ass TMI, but I'd already told him I thought it was a bad idea. I dropped them off at his place at approximately 9:20. Drive back to my place, sit in the car, my boyfriend's car, with permission, my car is too rickety. Smoke a cigarette or two, listen to some music, suddenly have to pee real bad. Run into our apartment, got a text from my friend that just reads, you, at 11:10 a.m. I'm not too worried, I'll respond in a few. The second I finish peeing, haven't even touched the TP, I get a call from him. He says, hey, there's some scrabbling, and she's on the phone crying, please come pick me up, I'm so scared, please hurry, I just want to go home, please don't hang up. I'm thinking, what the fuck happened? Finish my bathroom stuff and drive over. She gets in the car sobbing, nose running, crying into her phone to someone else. I offer her some of my tea lemonade. She says it's really good. I stop at the gas station again, am handed gas money again, and get her own. It's in a clear bottle. She opens it, factory sealed, doesn't shake it first, takes a sip, says it tastes different. Sees the tea and pulp. Accuses me of trying to drug her for about 15 minutes straight, begging me to tell her what I put in the drink. I explained she just needs to shake it up. After a while she came down and asked to stop and get food. We stopped for burgers, fries, ice cream. She tells me what happened. She has severe PTSD, took a dab, and it intensified the paranoia and spooked her the fuck out. She was still high at this point, but out of her panic attack. We chatter, she's sweet but still spilling some ridiculously personal shit. Adds me on Facebook, I drive her the rest of the way back. We part ways and I call my friend to fill him in that it was a panic attack ex-dab. After I'm home for a bit I messaged to ask her how she's doing. She's appreciative I reached out and took care of her during the attack, apologizing profusely for everything. I put the phone down, take a nap with my boyfriend. Woke up, went to the bathroom, and he had texted me that she was in a better headspace and that they wanted to try again. I told him that I didn't want to drive there and back for more times in the same day. Could it wait until tomorrow? They agree. Then one of the two texts and asks me if I'd go down to pick her up if she stayed the night. I groan and moan but ultimately agree, making both of them agree that they'd lay low this time. So I pick him up, he literally lives 3 blocks away. Again and we set out again. It's approximately 7:15 p.m. this time. We bump my music, smoke cigs, talk and enjoy the company and sunsets. Pick her up, she's in a much better mood, head back. Drop them off and I head home. Get home about 9:30ish, give or take. I lay down on our ridiculously comfortable couch and pass out at about 11. It's 2:30 a.m. and I woke up, thanks Kat. Check my phone, text from her saying, help me, they're up to something, I'm freezing, I puked twice, help. and from him saying, "Please tell me you're awake." I respond once or twice, then he calls. I answer, and he explains that they're trying to figure out what the fuck to do. She needs to be moved off the property, or he needs me to calm her down, or just give him some moral support, because she's having another panic attack, on acid this time. Fucking Christ, why does no one listen to me? I throw some clothes on and head over. I pull up, and she walks up to me, chatting a mile a minute, tears and snot and puke all over. He's trying not to cry and clearly trying to kill the high. His buddy is wandering around so high he can't string more than 3 words together, and his buddy's mom is flitting around like a hummingbird trying to quietly get things back in order. My friend is living with the mom and dad. We corral her into the car. She's crying about how cold it is, and how she just wants to go home. I reiterate that I just woke up to friend, buddy, and buddy's mom, and am not sure that I'm safe to drive that distance at night while tired. We're discussing options standing outside of my boyfriend's car, while she moans into her arms. It's honestly mostly me, friend, and the mom talking since buddy was off on Mars. My personal vote is to get a cheap but safe hotel room in town for the night, and let her come down there, drive her back in the morning. Her vote is to go home. Buddy's is to call an Uber, which would have been $85. Friend gets cold, so he goes into the car. I ask Buddy to go get a water bottle for her, so she has something to drink. He complies. Mom and I talk options. It's been about 20 minutes. The biggest thing is getting her somewhere else so the dad of the house doesn't wake up. He's anti-drug, would have called the police, and thrown friend's ass onto the curb while he was in lockup. Straight edge, works in prisons, the whole nine. I wish I was joking. So I decide that as long as I have a partner to talk to on the road, then I'll be fine to drive. I'm pretty damn awake at this point. Stop and get a 5-hour energy, and we're off. Car ride is fucking silent the whole way. I'm obviously focused on the road, looking for deer, almost hit one at one point. Drumming my fingers to music, smoking, trying to wrap my head around this ridiculous reality. Drop her off and leave right away. My friend and I talked the entire way back about what happened, life, sobriety, religion. It got fucking deep. As we're coming off the highway into town, friend gets a text from Buddy that dad just woke up. I ask him if he wants to lay low at our place for a bit, since he's still tripping. He agrees. We drive to my place. Turns out dad doesn't work today. Friend crashed on the comfortable couch, got some sleep. I just dropped him back off, sobered up, about 2 hours ago. In total, I spent almost exactly 6 hours behind the wheel and was comped gas and emotional labor. It was an experience. I've been waiting to tell this one. Let me try to explain this one. Never tried to tell this story before, so I apologize in advance if it's all over the place. You know how it goes with Tinder. Make a few matches, start a few conversations, get some phone numbers. That funnels down to maybe 1 or 2 matches that you alter daily. Well, this was one of those connections I texted daily. Finally asked her out to lunch. Lunch date went great. Scheduled a jog together at a local park. That went great. Now fast forward to next week, and a dinner date was planned for Friday night. She texted me a few hours before we planned to meet with some bad news. She stated that she couldn't meet later on that night due to her father needing to use her car for work that evening. I was bummed but totally okay with that. It's more important for her father to keep his job than for us to meet up. Family first. She explained to me her family's economic situation, and I couldn't get upset at something like this. Shit happens. We strike up our normal text conversations after the date was canceled, and that's when I'm guessing she was comfortable enough to ask if I would be able to pick her up from her house. Mind you, this point we're still strangers, haven't even exchanged social media yet. FB, Snap, Instagram. I agreed to pick her up, and now the date is back on. I arrived at her place and picked her up. We both decided to go to a wing place. There we are, both 3 beers in. Both just destroyed a spinach dip appetizer, like a bunch of hungry lions on the Serengeti. Just before we ordered our main course of gourmet wings LOL, I noticed her phone ringing a lot. Like a crazy ex finding out you're on a date, and trying to get a hold of you ringing. She tries to silence his phone, but someone was really trying to get a hold of her. I'm talking call after call after call. I suggested she answer. Might be an emergency, but she declined. Stated it was her mom, trying to get a hold of her. I told her, she should probably answer. What if it's an emergency? So she gets up and walks outside the extremely loud wing place. So, yeah, not the first time I got into someone's shitty relationship drama, because I was the rebound after a bad breakup. So at this point I'm thinking the worst, her husband, boyfriend, or something was really blowing her phone up. I'm waiting for some dude to approach me and start a fight. Extremely common where I live, so she was gone like 5 to 10 minutes at this point, and I was seriously thinking about just getting the check because there's a chance she's not coming back to the table. She comes back to the table looking like a ghost, and all freaked out. I asked her if everything was okay, and her next words were, "My brother was just found dead in his apartment. Can you please give me a ride over there?" I agreed, paid the tab, and drove like Batman over to where her brother's apartment was. We arrive at the apartment, and there were police cars everywhere. She tried to jump out of my truck, 4-inch lift, and crashed the landing. I park, run around to help her out, and as I'm brushing the dirt off her jeans, here comes the whole family. I'm talking every local branch of the family tree was there. Maybe 15 to 20 people. So there I was meeting Mom, Dad, and everyone else at their complete worst. As I was walking back to the driver's side of my truck, I hear someone call my work nickname. I work with some of the local law enforcement, and one of the officers on scene was a good friend of mine. He calls me over, and as I got over to his cruiser, he's asking why the hell I am here. I briefly explained to him that I was on a date with the sister of the departed. I asked what happens and being close friends through work, both in LE. He tells me the guy committed suicide, explains how he was found and points to a hand-drawn stack of papers and says that's the suicide note right there. My reaction was complete shock, and I just wanted to get the fuck out of there. I'm not a family member. I don't know this girl at all, and I'm not helping anyone by being there. I ask my officer friend if he can move his cruiser a little bit so I can get past and leave. He's clearing a path, and I'm walking back to my truck. The father of the girl I was just on a date with grabs me and demanded I tell him what happened. It just hit me like a dump truck. They haven't been told how their relative died, but the father demands I tell him. So I'm trying to deflect. I'm trying to get to my truck and just fucking leave. But this guy had both hands around my left wrist, with the whole family mob standing right behind him, begging me to explain what happened. So I tell them he committed suicide. The father falls to the ground, Mom faints, does the same. Everyone is crying and going crazy. Now is my time to fucking leave. But the girl I was on a date with runs up to me and hugs me, crying her brains out, screaming in my neck/shoulder. So I stayed and helped as I could. The family all packed into cars to get there, so there wasn't enough room for my date to fit somewhere. She asked if I could drive her and her parents back to their house, and of course I agreed to. Most awkward night of my life.